Hi, friends. I'm Scott Giles, and welcome to Power Talk, my podcast here on Facebook Live and YouTube. I cover topics related to spirituality, hypnotic coaching, and the hypnotic arts and sciences in general. If you want to know more about my professional work or sign up for my free newsletter, Power Lines, check out my website, which I'll tag at the end of this video. Well, today I want to talk about a spiritual exercise that can pay you enormous benefits if you can muster up the courage to do it, because it is something that does require some internal fortitude to be willing to do. It's classically called, in the language of spiritual direction, the examen. And I've done a formal implementation of this under the guidance of two of the spiritual directors I've worked with, and will soon complete a third. When you do an examen in this way, you have a trusted partner who works with you, and that helps a lot because it can be tough to do this if you don't have someone looking over your shoulder to say, that's bullshit, because we all tend to try to fool ourselves. Periodically, I do smaller touch-up versions of the examen on my own, but it does help if you can touch base with a trusted advisor, friend, or even colleague. Now, this podcast on the examen is the first of two related podcasts. Today I'm talking about the examen. Next week, I will talk about a much more positive and fun component called the Affirmatio. But today we're examining, not affirming. An examen is what in 12-step programs is called the fourth step. And this is a quote: We made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves, unquote. That's what the examen is. You sit down and think about your values and what you believe is right. Then you go over the narrative of your memories and your life story and look for those places where you may have messed up. There will be mistakes you have made because we all make them. It can be times when in anger or under the embrace of another emotion, you did something vindictive or mean. Basically, you make a list of your faults, the mistakes you made, and the people you perhaps have harmed. Now, this process can be very hard to do, honestly. We all tend to fool ourselves. The human capacity for self-deception is great. It is far, far too easy to issue yourself a moral get-out-of-jail-free card and excuse yourself for the times when you made serious errors or betrayed yourself or someone else. But keep at it. If you're doing this alone, it can really help to actually write things out. You can burn the pages later if you wish, but the act of writing tends to make the ideas more objective. And you end up with an honest list of your faults, failings, and screw-ups. Now, no one likes to be found at fault. In fact, this is what many of us walk around fearing, that we'll be exposed as imposters or as less than we want other people to believe. But keep at it. Take comfort from the fact that everyone actually feels exactly the same way about themselves. In Stoic philosophy, there is a saying, ego is the enemy. And that's true. Your defensiveness and denial are serious barriers to honest self-assessment. But if you really want to become a better version of yourself and really take control of your life through the power of your mind, you can't start from a position of self-deception. One of the times when I did my personal examen, I realized that a lot of the pain I recalled from my upbringing was from my belief that I needed to be perfect. If I made any mistake and got anything wrong, and I made a lot, I would either beat myself up or get defensive. Now, there's a reason for this. My family was one that blamed me for everything, and my childish mind thought that being perfect would be a protection. But as I discovered in those few times when I did everything right, it wasn't. I still got criticized. The joke I sometimes make about this as I grew up was that I found that I grew trying to be perfect and that I failed. So I modified my goal and I'm trying to be imperfect instead. And it turns out I'm much more successful at that. Now, of course, that's a joke, but the examen is an important thing. If you really want to excel at anything, you cannot succeed if you are deceiving yourself. You need to be honest with yourself that there will be some things you do well, some things you just sort of do, and other things you'll be far better off not doing at all. This requires self-awareness, and you get that self-awareness by being honest with yourself about what your faults are and where you messed up. Now, in 12-step programs, the step after making this sort of moral inventory is to try to make amends to people you may have hurt. I'm not going there in this podcast. That's a much more complicated topic. I'm just trying to persuade you to be honest with yourself about where you're strong and where you're weak, where you've had victories and where you've failed. Examining that dark stuff isn't fun, but you'll be amazed at how much energy it will give you. That's right. It will give you energy if you do an examen. The reason is that without being aware of it, most people are expending a lot of mental and emotional energy in pretending to be perfect. Defensiveness is not only a bad idea, it is exhausting because no one is perfect, and if you pretend that you are, it's like trying to climb an unclimbable wall. Once you're able to stop doing that and say, yeah, I screwed up, you'll get back all of the unconscious energy you've been spending trying to deny that you made mistakes and did things you wish you had not. Accepting your imperfection will make you feel better. Honest. And that's what I have to share with you today. Check back next week for the second part of this, the Affirmatio, which is much more pleasant, but may not be what you think. So I appreciate your time and attention today. I will be back next week with part 2, and I'd like to invite you to join me. It does help me if you let others know about my work and my videos. So please like, share, and subscribe. And of course, if I can be of help to you, don't hesitate to reach out. Have a great week.